So, my name is John Cedar. I've been asked to do this. I do want you to know that I did not schedule this for Friday. Katie did. So, if you have any concerns whatsoever, I kept going, really? Are you serious? And then, of course, my topic, just to make sure it's really good for a Friday night, is board member ethics, an overview of board member rights and responsibilities, the Open Meetings Act, Code of Conduct, and Code of Ethics. It don't get much more exciting than that. I will say that that is untenable for me. I am not capable of simply reading to you from ethics books, so I will do what I can, given the context and the content that I'm supposed to cover. I'll do what I can, and we will start with trying to reason with the hurricane season. It's Friday at 5. It's 5 o'clock state of mind. It's going to be a Jimmy Buffett Friday night in compliance with the school district policies. But the quotes that you'll see throughout, including 5 o'clock state of mind, are from Jimmy Buffett. They're not from me. Some of them are just for my own humor and my own. They're inside jokes for me. If you want to know what the jokes are, if you don't get any of the quotes, feel free to ask me, and I may or may not tell you. The other thing is, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. This is going to be an interactive process. If people can't hear me in the back, if everybody in the back could move forward, just kidding. But if you have questions, it'll be interactive. I need your help to make this work, especially given the day and time. So first of all, I need to tell you a little bit about us. The firm is Cedar, Wendlandt, Evans, and Filippi. We take the law seriously, not ourselves. That was our motto when we started, and we started with 4 people from the University of Michigan. That would be me, John Wendlandt, Bill Evans, and Leah Filippi. We continued to look for some quality attorneys. We weren't successful, so we reached down to Stanford University, and that's Alan Quindaniel over there on the left. And then we really reached down, and Carolyn Hyman is from Duke. So we're a small group, but we like to, and I will tell you, since it's a small group, it is really hard to find attorneys that I'm willing to work with that have a sense of humor. Attorneys don't generally have a sense of humor. So maybe by the end of today you'll go, yes, they really don't have a sense of humor.
Duke is where Richard Nixon took ethics from.
Huh?
Duke is where Richard Nixon took ethics.
I'm sorry, do I?
Duke is where
He's
Richard
making a
Nixon
joke.
took ethics.
No, I don't.
Duke University.
Did he go to Duke?
He did. He graduated from.
Did he really?
Yeah.
See, I don't know that.
If the ethics
No. The ethics come from Michigan. The ethics come from Michigan. Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw him. Bill Evans swang by and gave me my book because I left it in the office, but he told me to tell you hi. Bill Evans.
Oh.
He's one of my partners. Anyway, so we've got lots to cover. Before we get... I do need to tell you on a serious note, this is a presentation. It's not intended to be legal advice, so just breathe in, breathe out, move on. And that's my carrier makes me say that when I use pictures like this and use slides. That being said, if anybody has any follow-up questions, I'm happy to circle back at some later date and give you more specific answers. In general, when we're talking about, and one other little asterisk here, who had the idea of asking a lawyer to talk about ethics, which ties into Richard Nixon at Duke? So that's another whole thing. I mean, I'm like, what? These things, when you're talking about conduct, you're talking about ethics, you're talking about, not the Open Meetings Act, that's just a statute, but when you're talking about those other two, the facts generate the result. That is absolutely always the case. So some of these questions that you'll see are intended to make points. They're not intended to be, an answer for all time with regard to a particular topic. They're always going to be nuanced when you're in real life. So, board member legal rights and responsibilities in general, useless but important information is what Jimmy Buffett would say. So we're going to talk about the board member rights, responsibilities, the OMA, the Open Meetings Act, Code of Conduct, Code of Ethics. I also was given the board norms, but that was just yesterday, so I have them in my packet, but I probably won't mention them. But if anybody has a question, we'll talk about it. The way I did this is I tried to tie some of these things together And using a Buffett line, it's somewhat more like a cheeseburger in paradise as far as trying to tie in, the Open Meetings Act, conduct, and ethics on a few of the questions. I wasn't able to do that on all of them, so that's the way I approached it, and we'll see how it works. So, here we go. Jimmy's power only exists after 5 o'clock somewhere. When does a school board member's power exist? So, see, I'm going to need some interaction here, or I'll go sit over there, raise my hand, call on myself, and answer the question. So where you are, many of you here are board members. Where does your power come from? And for AASB, I use Marvel characters, so I have the Hulk. But here, we're doing Jimmy. So where does your power come from? Which is kind of interesting. You get elected. What power do you got?
Well, I was going to say the power comes from the people.
Yeah. That's kind of sixth grade. No, and I'm totally. Thank you for answering. In fact,
My mom's a sixth grade teacher. So I'm answering.
Okay, the
answering.
power comes from the people. All right. Maybe at Berkeley. No, this is actually for you. This is actually.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank
Well,
you.
you don't know what's in it. It's an envelope. Kathleen,
So, we're board, so
where does your power come from?
it's from 7-Us, so it's us working together.
Okay, I'll take that as partial right. And so I will tell you, this is in your board conduct thing. So I know you guys have it all memorized. So we'll jump to it because we got a partially right answer. Thank you very much, Kathleen. Here, I only got a couple of these, so answer early, answer often.
Just raise your hand and he'll give
Just
you
like
one.
when you're voting. Where does your power exist? Your power comes from, and it comes from statute too, but I'm going to use your conduct here. It comes from, here's what you get. Here's what you get. So you worked hard, you got elected, here's what you get. You get the right to receive information provided to the school board. Whew, that's something. All right. You get to attend and participate, and here's your Kathleen was right. Attend and participate in board and committee meetings. This is looking awfully good. So what is it that you really get? And what you really get is you get the right to vote. But see, the point I want to make there is is kind of like it's both. I want you to look at both sides of the coin. Your power comes when you vote. That's how. So it's working together. It's when you sit at this dais and you take a vote. That is where your power comes from. But the counter to that, the other side of that coin, is that when you're not sitting up there, your power, with the exception of the president, and I think I talk about that later, but I can't remember, is very limited. It diminishes. It's kind of, it's the difference between, if you follow Marvel, the Hulk only has power when he's angry. He doesn't have power when he's just Bruce Banner. Spider-Man always has his power. So you're more like the Hulk than you are like Spider-Man. So. Let me see if I had any notes. Any questions?
I would say that I would divide those powers into legal power, vote, and informal power.
Right, but I'm a lawyer, so we are focusing on legal. And you mean influential, like bully pulpit. Bully pulpit would be one way, the soapbox would be another way. The ability to communicate an idea and to have basically a possibly higher elevation from which to make those comments. Yes, because of the name. Which, that's interesting, we'll get into that later in the ethics section about how you can use your name and recent changes to the Code of Ethics. What happened here? Oh, okay, here's the next one. The weather is here. That's a Jimmy Buffett song. Let's pretend things are a bit challenging in Juneau, and I'm not just talking about the weather. Although you are not the board president, you get invited to go on local radio or TV for an unscripted interview. You are lured into a verbal attack on certain legislators and those who oppose investment in public schools. Unfortunately, a well-connected senator, I don't know why I picked a senator instead of a House member, and friend of Warren Buffett, hears your interview and decides to sue you. No worries. The district will insure and indemnify you for legal costs and any potential settlement or judgment. Who thinks this is true?
This seems really unlikely.
Huh?
This seems really unlikely.
It's a class, man. No, it's actually. I have had. These are fictitious facts, but it's not as. I'll tell you about it in a minute. but the point of these are not supposed to be real life situations as much as hopefully a process on how to think about things. So the question here is, you are in a position, it could be you're driving, I mean, we could put it in a tort scenario with you're driving a car, we could put it with an interaction in a hallway, we could do it, I'm just using.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant that the district covering for you seems unlikely.
Oh, so you're saying false. You're saying false.
Yeah.
Okay, and why? Why do you think it's false? Because, and throughout all of these, it's not necessarily getting the answer right, it's what's the lesson, how do you get to that answer?
They don't do it for their thousands of staff members. They don't do it for their thousands of staff members.
Okay, remember that.
Okay.
Anybody else have an idea?
Well,
Remember that and make me come back to that.
but I have a question, because there's a difference, and not that they're going to protect us either way, but if you're, because you can't speak as the board, you have to speak as an individual saying, I'm not speaking as a board, unless they're inviting you as a board member, and therefore you're speaking as a board member.
So
Correct?
So if you're speaking,
how would you, let's start with, so sometimes,
it's not a vote. If you didn't vote on that opinion, I don't.
no, but sometimes lawyers draft questions to make points. So I'll get back to your question. More than happy to answer it. But let's work on this one right now. Is who thinks this is true and who thinks it's false?
False.
Who thinks it's true? Raise your hand. We got a lively group here. Who thinks it's false? Okay, you all think it's false? I heard one reason why we thought it was false, which is we don't do it for the thousands of other employees that we have.
Because you're not supposed to be speaking unless the board president has appointed you to speak for an interview, especially if the board hasn't come up with a position on it.
Okay, so here's the potential answer. The answer is false, but not for those reasons. I'm not sure if we get close.
One of the reasons.
No, because look what you got. Here's this statute. And there we go. School board shall insure or indemnify. So you have to insure or indemnify and protect the board, any member of the board, the ... there, it goes to all the other employees. So all of your employees get this indemnification. You buy this insurance. You buy general liability, you buy E&O, you buy facilities. Anyway, the school board shall indemnify and insure so long as, the highlighted part at the bottom, so long as the board member, because we're talking about board members, at the time of the occurrence was acting under the direction of the school board within the course or scope of the duties of the school board member. So you have to be within the course and scope of your duties. You know what that would make me? It would make me nervous if I were you, because that is a huge, it doesn't matter. So to your point, but what I thought was your first point, which was, well, this doesn't happen that often, and you were referring to the thousands of people who, but they are all covered. They're all covered. If they're acting in the course and scope of your duties, I'll give you an easy one from, a teacher gets sued because a kid falls off a piece of playground equipment. The teacher was standing by, didn't do anything. There's $500,000 of potential damages. The district indemnifies and insures. That's within the course and scope of the duties.
If they sue the district.
Yeah, and everybody sues the district. That's brass tacks. There's deep pockets and there's not. Any employee off campus who has inappropriate contact with a student, the district's going to say, we are not. The plaintiff's attorney will try to sue the school district, but we would say there's no indemnification there. So that was the point. Everybody is covered. You have to be within the course and scope of your duties. That makes your job as a school board member and how you present yourself. Remember, go back to question 1. Your power, your legal power, comes from up here. When you get away from up here, your coverage, because coverage is important. It's 2017 in the United States of America. If you're out there saying things or doing things and you think you're covered and you're not, that would be a precarious. That's like that thing down in the Grand Canyon where you can walk out on the glass and look down and go, bleep. But so you need to be aware of that tension between power, coverage, and no power, possibly no coverage. The question excludes the board president because under your board conduct rules, you have special powers. So there we are. There we go. The board president is appointed to speak to the media on behalf of the board and will represent the majority consensus of the board. So if the board president and another board member go out and do the exact same thing, one could receive indemnification from the school district, the other one may not. So that's, words to the wary. In speaking as an individual, each board member should clarify that he/she is speaking as an individual and not for the entire board. Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Okay, but you know what's interesting about that? Just so, and totally serious, you guys gotta tell me if I'm getting off track or not off track. I'm looking for little, I'm looking for, anyway, let me know.
Say something, I'll let you know.
You will, yeah. You are now the parliamentarian. No, but the thing about that is, you go out there, so that makes a lot of sense. Who does that make a lot of sense to? You as a board member, or me as an attorney for a school district?
Both.
It makes better. Well, more. It makes a lot of sense to both, I'm sure.
Clarifies.
Who gets the leverage there? I get the leverage as the attorney for the school district, because you stand up and say, I am not speaking on behalf of the board, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I think our state senate is a bunch of bleep, 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 whatever you want to say. You get sued, okay? I defend the school district, which is an entity, it's not any one of you. I go, Exhibit A is so-and-so saying, I am not speaking on behalf of the school board. Now, and you go, well, I can still speak. I have First Amendment rights. Yes, you do have First Amendment rights. But I will say, and I'm not, lawyers tend to be kind of glass half empty, but it is not whether you win or lose the battle. It is whether you're in a battle and who's funding it. And the difference between are you okay? I mean, we're all adults. I'm speaking directly. You can win the game and have a framed judgment from the Alaska Superior Court to put on your wall. Well, except for that wall, you might not have that wall anymore because you cost you 50 grand or 30 grand or 20 grand. So coverage is important, and you should be, as a board member, so on general board rights and responsibilities, you want to be keenly aware of what it is you're covered for and what it's not. And I didn't go get your insurance policies or anything like that, but that's what the statute says.
John?
Yes.
Even when I'm being interviewed by the media and they ask me a question where it's not something that the board has implicitly discussed, I'll always say, I can give you my personal opinion on this, but I cannot speak for the board on this. And inevitably, when I'm not speaking for the board, that never ends up in the article. They only take the piece where I said the board has blah, 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 blah. So, interesting.
And in an age where media and speed of media are more important than content and thoughtfulness, it can become dangerous. I do want to say, to tie into a couple of comments about the questions, because they're for educational purposes only, is reiterate here that one of my favorite quotes from John Adams before he was president was, facts are stubborn things. That is a great quote. He was a colonist and a revolutionary, but he actually represented the redcoats. He represented the British in the Boston Massacre, and he defended them successfully. And people criticized him, who were part of the revolutionary group. And his comment was, "Facts are stubborn things. These guys are not guilty." So, but facts are really stubborn things, and so all of these things are meant for just talking, learning how we get to answers, how we think about things, not necessarily any particular fact scenario.
So if Tam is gone and the vice president fills in for the president, and the media wants to interview them or whatever, are they covered under the insurance?
I would guess I would be more than happy to say I'm stuttering only because I have no clue what the answer is. No, I'm stuttering because I haven't read your insurance policy. But under agency theory, so one of the theories on how the world works is if Tam's gone and you're you're in an acting role, you would get the same coverage. So something happens at the school district, media wants a comment, you go out and comment, you can do that. You're going to be, that's completely okay. Did that answer your question? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm missing a slide here. Okay, qualified coverage, sorry about that. Okay, here we go. Can a board member's power, so we talked about, this is part of the other side of the coin. Can a board member's power to participate in board meetings and vote be limited? In other words, can your powers as a board member be taken away? Now, so who thinks that your board powers, your power to sit up here, can be taken away from you? Who thinks it can be taken away? Who thinks it can't be taken away?
Except by removal from office.
Huh?
Yeah, they can.
Except by removal from office.
Okay, removal from office is one. Now let's put that to a side. You can all be recalled or decide not to run. Okay? So let's assume, not counting recall, can your power be removed? You're up here, you're in your strongest position ever, you're the Hulk, you're Spider-Man, you're whoever, pick your hero, you're Jimmy Buffett after 5 o'clock. You're up here, can your power be taken away? You're up here.
Yes.
Who said yes? Why, Star?
Because in the code of conduct for the municipality, there's something in there.
It's actually in your code of conduct.
Well, yeah, it's in our code of conduct too, but.
So the answer is yes. Actually, you know, it just hit me. There's clues in my quotes. It just hit me. Life is just a tire swing. A tire swing goes back and forth. So.
Yeah, but I didn't see that.
Well, I'm not saying you're cheating. I'm just saying there's some clues. Okay. Can a board member's power to participate in board meetings and vote be limited? The answer is yes. And here we go. Look at this. So here, this is in your code of conduct, which I only read like, I don't know, 8 days ago. So examples of behavior that will not be tolerated are rude remarks, interruptions, yelling, name calling, and disrespectful verbal or body language. And if that happens, the board president, or in the board president's absence, the person in charge, which would be Star, a private conversation will be had with the offending board member. And if that doesn't work, the board member may be ejected for the remainder of the meeting. And a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that actually happened at one of these meetings. Which one of your?
I guess I interpreted what you said, though, as permanently taking the vote away.
Well, that would be
Temporary.
okay. That would be recall, for instance, or being. There's also a statutory obligation that you live within the school district if you moved, or there'd be some of those. But this was meaning, can we ever take your power away? This isn't the only place in your code of conduct where this is addressed, you know. So you can have formal complaints also. By the way, because you're the parliamentarian, that's why I gave you that envelope.
And to ask a general question about
Sure.
that, because
Thank you. A question. You don't know how happy I am.
under the rules of the municipality in place here, can this board pass this code of conduct and in essence assert the municipal rules that put us here?
I'm wishing you hadn't asked the question now. No,
Sorry.
the answer to that,
For me.
so I'm actually have been dealing with this, not for this school district, but number one, there's actually, so Star, be listening because I'll get off topic. Actually, there's a question as to the ability for a municipality to impose rules of any sort on a school district. So depending on the Alaska Supreme Court has not decided this, but a school district gets its source of power, not the board members, but a school district gets its source of power from the legislature. The legislature has a constitutional obligation to provide education. In making that decision as to how to deliver educational services, the legislature created school districts. When they created school districts, kind of like the Sistine Chapel, you know, the legislature's hand touched down, and it created city school districts. It's Friday afternoon, man. You guys,
Some people I don't think would appreciate that.
it's just a painting. The Sistine Chapel, you know, it's
You compare
not Shakespeare. Well, they-
legislature got, but
No, it had the power of creation for the state of Alaska.
Yeah.
And it reached down and created city school districts, borough school districts, and all the other places which it called REAAs. And this is in '74 after state-operated schools fell into disfavor. Anyway, it created, and it made them coterminous. Your boundaries are coterminous with the municipality of Anchorage. And the legislature said, well, you know what? There might be some issues, so we better make sure there's some statutory language regarding the relationship between cities and boroughs and their school district. REAs don't have to worry because there's no other elected body out there. And that's in Title 14. It's like 14.14060. And so the question is how far can the municipality, so you have a symbiotic relationship with the municipality somewhat, how far can the municipality stretch over and actually impact the organizational operations of a school district that gets its power not from the municipality but from the state of Alaska? So for instance, you're not a department of the municipality. You have a symbiotic relationship, and there's a hand that feeds you aspect to it because they give you money, and so, kind of like me with my kids, they don't have to listen to me anymore, but there's certain dialogues that occur that causes them to sometimes agree with me. So, and less so. It's kind of scary.
They're approving our budget and our bonds.
Why are they?
Well, if we're not a department of theirs, and
Because they got to get it onto the election, and they have required local contribution that's a minimum, and they've got a maximum they can contribute. And in 060, the relationship between the city and the school district includes who gets, I'm not going to talk about this, you can't get me off topic, you're the parliamentarian, but it includes the relationship. Part of that relationship is who's in charge of selecting school sites, who's in charge of selecting school, or paying for school major maintenance and school construction, and that's where that comes in. That's not what I was planning on talking about. It's okay, I'll hold you.
I just want to say, there are times where people have gone to the assembly to try to have them change how the board has decided to do their budget. And that's a no-no.
Right, and there are cases on that, like the ability to veto expenditures for education through the municipal process. But I will tell you, and now we're far afield, and I'm waiting for the ring of the bell. But okay, and so I get 30 seconds to wrap up. But I will tell you, as times get tougher, as fiscal times get tougher, that's where I'm dealing with it right now. Municipal governments are going, well, wait a minute. We want this, we want that. So for instance, how much money do you guys spend on risk management? I don't know. How much does the municipality spend? I don't know. It's not 50-50, so how does that struggle work out if one wants to reach over towards the other? And so those are the kind of things that'll be coming up, and that has nothing to do with this. Okay, so here's another thing. On a more formal level, this is out of your code of conduct, which I was asked to go over, but you can have a formal complaint against a school board member. If you have a formal complaint against a school board member, it's in your code of conduct. You have that comes before the board after some process. And if you want to dismiss it, that is done by a majority vote. A motion to dismiss requires a majority vote to pass. A penalty, you can determine a penalty to be assessed against a board member, which could impact their ability to attend functions, any benefits that you currently have passed under statute would be benefits, pay, or anything else that you get, you can impact that, and I've been involved in those situations before. And then you can censure somebody. But what's interesting is you can't, to the question of, well, but that doesn't remove them from office. You can't remove somebody from office. They were elected. The people, that would get back to some roundabout things from earlier questions, the people can remove somebody either in an election or through a recall process. Is this helpful to you guys at all?
yes.
Okay.
Let's go a little slower.
I'm leaving at 7. I'm kidding. So no, what do you want me to go slower on?
Just when you click.
Your preferred candidate for an exempt administrative job with the district has a better chance of being hired since you were elected to the board. Who says that's true? Who says that's false? Not one person here says that's true. That shocks me. That shocks me. So I will disagree with all of you. But I will tell you this. This is one of my favorite Buffett quotes. Indecision may or may not be my problem. There is no right answer to this. And so this is intended. We are sliding into a topic that will probably make
Well, that's
people.
not, that's an opinion right there. It may or may not.
Well, it's the way the question was written. No, but the question, remember, it's not whether you get these questions right or wrong. It's how you get, it's like math. I remember in math.
It affects the informal power, not formal.
No, this is both. This is only legal. I never deal with the informal unless we get to ethics.
But if you are telling the superintendent to hire this person, you have stepped from governance into
Okay.
management.
Okay, so let's.
But you vote on personnel at the end.
Well, wait. So here, this is going to be a fun discussion, and especially tied into the next question. Because we just talked about a symbiotic relationship between the municipality and its municipal school district. There's a symbiotic relationship between a board and its administration. Okay? So this is in both statute and in your board conduct. So here, the superintendent shall select, appoint, and otherwise control all school district employees that serve under the superintendent, subject to the approval of the board. So you have that, there is that relationship. So, that's there, right? And the question, and it's all of this is, I'll just let you know, it's all set up for my next question. But it's also down here. Board members may not write letters of recommendation in support of individuals seeking employment with the ASD or contact ASD staff to recommend applicants for employment, right? But you have the power of voting. So let me go back to my question real quick. This is why I wrote the question this way. Your preferred candidate for an exempt administrative job with the district has a better chance of being hired since you were elected. I didn't say what the job was, so I don't know if it's, and you don't know whether it's a certified person, a classified person, a superintendent, I don't know how you guys vote on a facilities director, or I don't know where you're, how you group your things. I don't know. Don't really worry about it. But the point again is not whether you got right, true, or false. The point is that here's the point: is you know why you guys all said false? Because it's not politically correct to say true. I think that's probably correct because you are, and you have this in your code of conduct, which I did not put on one of these slides, which is. And it's in the municipal ethics also. You are hired not in a vacuum, or not hired. You are elected not in a vacuum. You are elected as people with ideas, with thoughts, with judgment. And so it is mathematically certain that it's more likely that a preferred candidate will get your vote than not get your vote. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Does it make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, you vote for your preferred candidate.
I can think of an instance where we have the personnel report and there's a person that's going to be hired that maybe I know other information about the district that goes, no, he used to be my drug dealer. I'm joking.
Hold it.
Just joking, but I mean,
Right.
that would be where you would,
I've had things where people have said we're pulling a name off or we're putting a name on, and there's that symbiotic thing. The point of this question is, and I've never been a school board member, and we're going to get a little deeper into it. It's not easy to be a school board member, and it's not easy to be a school board. It's not easy to be a superintendent interacting with a school board. I mean, that's an art. There is an art there, and so the point is, for me, let me make sure I'm not even looking at my notes.
I think the way I read it was that it wasn't in the job description of the person to give preference to the candidate or give.
It wasn't in the job description of what? Of a school board member?
School board member.
No, but you have to bring your judgment. You, at a minimum, you're looking at the if you're looking, for instance.
First candidate has a better chance, so you're going to.
Because you're one of 7.
You're going to temper your personal views with what's best for, because you're a whole body picking this person. You're going to temper your views based on what you think is best for the district, not what's best for myself or an individual.
Sure.
That would be my argument.
Yeah, no, and I'm not, that's.
It's different when you're, hiring someone for yourself versus someone you're hiring.
Right, but the question was written vaguely on purpose. It's your preferred candidate. I don't know how you got there. I mean, and you got to be, in my line of work, I see more of the underbelly of life. I get but not all questions. In fact, very few questions that come to me start with. Everybody's acting reasonably and in good faith. Please answer the following question. I mean, those don't, literally, that rarely.
On your worst day.
Yeah, I mean, my questions tend to be, in the situations I deal with, even situations involving board members who, by definition, always act reasonably and in good faith, except for when they don't. And how you define what a preferred candidate is how you define what a preferred candidate is. But I guess what I'd say, and I would argue this till the cows come home, is that you have an opinion is why you're there. And it's too easy. It is too easy and therefore intellectually dishonest. And so this Friday afternoon, I've been working all week, to say, oh, I'm going to make the decision what's best. I mean, there is a part of you that is in that decision. And that part of you is honestly evaluating somebody either because of what's on paper that you're reading, how you interpret what you're reading, what their reputation is, the recommendations you've seen. You are imposing your will. That is what you are elected. That's why you sit up here. You sit up here to impose your will on those of us who aren't up here. That's, real life.
Use your judgment.
Yeah, and that's why it's preferred candidate. So superintendent. But see, there's a tension, and that's where I'm headed. There's a tension between your ability to impose your will. So, for instance, you couldn't say, I don't know how you do classified, so we'll stick to certified, because the law says, this is what the law says on certified, by the way, is the superintendent recommends, the board approves. I think I got a slide on that, subject to the board approving. So you can't sit up here and say, superintendent, we want you to recommend so-and-so. You are way, way overstepping, right? But it comes to you, and you then make your decisions. So is that helpful at all? You understand what I'm trying to get at? So all of this topic is, so as a lawyer, generally I deal with more concrete sequential stuff, but in the ethics world, there's not necessarily a right answer, and your responses are really valuable both to me, because I can learn, but also to yourselves as to how you think things through. The very nature of what is good conduct and what is ethics is very amorphous. So I may sound like I disagree with people, but I agree with all of you, and I know you're all in good faith. Just kidding, I'm a lawyer. No. Board members may not write red letters. We talked about that. Here's the statute. Chief school administrator shall select, point, and control. I underline certified employees subject to the approval of the board. Whoop. There's our question. What is micromanaging? No boss, no phone, no problems. What is micromanaging? Has anybody heard the term micromanaging? Yeah. Okay. What would be fun would be to have remember old Saturday Night Live when I was a kid had point and counterpoint? So maybe we could put the board president on this side and the superintendent on this side. No, I'm kidding. But that is the, and everybody's like, that is, so I do a lot of different things through school districts. One of the things that is the biggest struggle is what does it mean to micromanage? So I can give you easy answers, but it really will be better for you if you think about this for a minute and if somebody is willing to open the conversation. If anybody wants to do this
Well, I can give you an example, but it's not necessarily school board.
Yeah, it can be anything.
I don't micromanage.
But you don't get another envelope. Okay.
I don't micromanage, but I have every employee that works for me write me a daily report of everything that happened that day.
You really do?
No. Not me, but somebody else does.
Wow. Yeah, that'd probably be a good one.
I think as a board, if you're making policy that unnecessarily specifies particular parts of the organization, you try to make rules for a school, or you try to go into the actual administrative decision areas and
Yeah.
assert yourself, as opposed to making a broad policy and then having the superintendent exercise judgment.
Right. No, I think that's a great. I don't think there's a right, perfect answer. I think that's a great stab at it.
An example might be throughout the community, there's community concern that grading practices across ASD schools are not consistent. So as a board member, you say that you want 90 to 100 to be considered an A, 80 to 89 to be considered a B, and that you want this standardized across the district. That's my comment.
Yeah, that might be a good example. I'm not going to answer yes or no on any of these, but
But if you were to put that into policy, then it's not micromanaging.
but if you put anything into policy, that doesn't wash it. If you could put into policy that, what we're going to have tonight for snacks.
Policy is you want a
Standards.
Consistent. A district-wide uniform grading.
But you could put,
You task the superintendent to micromanage on your behalf.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, I think micromanaging is addressed in your board member thing. The superintendent is responsible for managing all ISD operations and staff under the general direction of the board. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. Board members will strive for a positive working relationship with the superintendent, respecting the superintendent's role in advising the board, implementing board policy, and operating the ASD. That makes sense, right?
I think the one point where it's sometimes gets a little bit gray is when, as representatives of the community and people are giving us information, when you pass that information on to the superintendent, the manner in which you do so, rather than saying, this is what I told you, or this is what was told to me, it's in your hands now to take care of. That's fine, as opposed to this is what is told to me and this is what I want you to do with it.
Yeah.
Then you get into
The demand.
Yeah.
So I'm actually looking at my notes here for a second. I'm actually just stalling. There's not a clean answer to what micromanaging is. I'm not stalling. That was a joke. But here's what I've seen over the years that makes it super, super difficult, or can make it super difficult. We're going to do some math. Is that you guys are the board of directors of a multi-million-dollar operation, and that's, but and then you have the decision, you have the duty of good decision making, and you have the duty to avoid micromanaging as set out in your board policies or your board conduct. In addition to that, though, you're elected. I mean, this is not. I've never been in your situation, but I empathize with what struggles you must run into on occasion, because you're an elected official. So you're a board of director of a very large organization. You're not going to micromanage. Your conduct that you have to follow says you're not going to micromanage. On the other hand, you're an elected official. You have constituents. Some of those constituents want to talk to you. You want to talk to some of them. Some of them, in a very slim possibility, some of them may have interests that are not necessarily in the more esoteric, what's in the best interest for the school district. And it's got to be super tough. It's got to be tough. You guys can't micromanage. On the other hand, you won't be, I suspect, I don't know, you wouldn't be successful if you walked through town and said, I ain't talking to you people, I don't micromanage, I'm not talking to no one. Nope, I'm not talking to no one. That's not going to happen, right? So it's a delicate balance, and I don't know the answer, but being a lawyer, I always try to come up with something. Let me see if okay. So here's, and I am not an artist either. But so the way I think about it, so I've gone through, so while I've never been in your shoes, I've been through I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've probably been I've been thousands of situations where we're trying to figure out where that line is. And each one is going to be factually nuanced. But over those years, what's synthesized in my brain, which is deteriorating rapidly, is a very simple picture. And it's this. Here's the board. I won my 3rd grade, downtown Detroit. I won the 3rd grade cursive writing contest, downtown Detroit.
Wow.
Okay? And this is my writing. What does that say? What does that say?
Higher education and kept writing.
No, but why? So is that a comment on Detroit? Look at that. That is the best I can write. Totally.
No, it just deteriorates over time. The more education you have. The
No,
more
it's the brain that's deteriorating. That's actually improved. No, the thing is, my teacher, 3rd grade, took me up to the 5th grade in downtown Detroit, 6 Mile an Hour drive, and introduced me to the 5th grade class and said, "This is John Cedar. He won our cursive writing." Do you know what happened to me out on the playground? I went out of my way for the next 10 years to learn how to write badly. So,
No instantaneous respect.
so here's, I don't know if this will help you at all, so it helps me as I think things through or when people call me with things like that, is what you have is a multi-million dollar organization that delivers educational services. But it does a lot more than that. I mean, it's,
$1 billion.
Yeah.
if you can, okay, I'm sorry. I withdraw my this is the largest corporation in Alaska. And we are going to merge with Tesla. But you do a lot more than just deliver educational services. You also create processes. You have tons of processes. I'm talking about a 12-page document that you guys should each have memorized, right? But do you know how many documents you have? How many documents, Dina? Billions. But those have processes, and you know what so I can say process. Is process a good thing?
Yes.
I can say the same thing. Words have power. I can say you guys have lots of process. I could also say this: you have lots of bureaucracy. And now everybody goes, well, that's bad. You have process, you have bureaucracy. That's the world I live in. It's wordsmithing. What are we trying to accomplish? But you have process. And when things hit you, this is what, if there is a standard kind of rule of thumb, when people are telling me their stories and I ask them these piercing cross-examination questions, whether they know it or not, I've asked a few already tonight. When things are coming to you from outside of your organization and they're coming to you as the board and they haven't gone through the process, I'm not saying that that's micromanaging if you don't send it back through process, but in most circumstances, quite often that can be where if you really step back, you'll go, wait a minute, what am I doing in this office talking about this thing when it just came to me from a constituent and I didn't send it down through the process? I don't know if that helps. I don't know if it doesn't help. Thoughts? Awkwardness?
I have a direct example. When the administration canceled a sport and hadn't told the board in advance.
Was the sport soccer?
No, it was
because I'm a soccer coach. Oh, wow. Anyway, that doesn't. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
And so,
You got
as
external.
we had a ton of external, and so
I
we
remember
sent it
that, actually.
back to the administration, and yes, there was some micromanaging happening because there was a different board president.
Well, yeah, and I got lots of stories, none of which I'll tell.
The rest of the state didn't know, and we weren't going to go to. Because who were the competition?
Oh, yeah.
One whole, like when one unit pulls out of a collective agreement, so,
Yeah.
no one knew, just so you know.
Yeah.
I don't even know anything about it.
Yeah, and I'm not.
2 years ago, I was like, what?
If you think boundaries are bad, try canceling a sport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
But we did.
So anyway,
So,
question.
you have a constituent or someone comes to you and they have a valid point. So you don't say, I think we need to do this, but I think they have a valid point and we should consider this or at least think about it. Is that micromanaging?
I don't know.
Delivering.
I will tell you this. So all of this has, I will tell you, and I am hugely irritated, and Katie knows, talking about the Open Meetings Act which I could do in my sleep, got morphed, at least I'm not sure, we got to check the records, but got morphed into these other things. So I actually had to think about this a lot. But that's why I started with, where do you get your power? So you're out here. This is a very good representation of your dais right here. Here's you as a board member here. These are separate pictures. And here's you in this circle, which is the community, right? When you're out here, how much power do you have? I think how much power do you have other than the influential power, because that was raised, but you have a very legitimate ability to tell somebody, literally, I'm a board member, my power is when I'm sitting at the board, I appreciate you giving this to me, but I'm not an employee. I don't know if you get a W-2 for your whatever stipends you get, but you're not substantively an employee. You need to go to so-and-so. And Dina, you need to step in, because I don't know what your internal processes are or what you guys even talk about. I don't know if you ever talk about these things, but you...
They're delivered to me about, I got this concern.
Mm-hmm. And is that what you want?
What I try to do is, I don't solve them myself, I send them to the lowest level where they should be.
But that's how things should come in a perfect model. So those who don't like it, those who want instant action will always call this organization bureaucratic. I don't begrudge them that. That's just the nature of the beast, right? But what the perfect model, you got people who spend time thinking this stuff through. The perfect model is stuff comes up, it gets filtered. Oh my God! Workers' comp claim. No, but think about this for a minute. You guys as a board, and each of you as an individual board member, you would like to be the board that makes the best decisions ever, right? The best decisions ever. And let's tie back to John Adams. He was a pretty good president, right?
Sure, I was there.
History tells us, though he was more of a monarchist. But you want to make the best decisions ever. Facts matter. Facts are stubborn things. The way you can get the best, and this is what process is. Process sifts. So while this is going up, I don't know the science, I'm not a scientist, but you're separating the wheat from the chaff, and that's how a lawsuit works. That's why lawsuits take forever. What's that, bureaucracy, or is it called process? In law, we say, oh, it's process, and all of you guys believe us. But it's just bureaucracy. But over time, what happens is a case that has 50,000 facts gets winnowed down. Go to any U.S. Supreme Court case. The issue in this case is whether this fact is right or this fact is right as applied to the law. Yeah. They winnow it down. And so nobody, there's a couple of exceptions, nobody goes to the Supreme Court first. Yeah. The Supreme Court doesn't want that. There's too many ways for them to be wrong. By the time it gets to the Supreme Court, they go one way or the other. And they do that based somewhat, it seems, ideologically. But that's the same thing for you. You will make better decisions letting your process sift out. And what else does that do? As opposed to doing quick, hey, because this process, you know what this is akin to? Today's social media. Hey, I got a problem today. Let's fix it. I got 37,000 likes. Let's go. The speed of information transmission erodes the quality of decisions. And as a lawyer, I believe that to be 100% true. I may be wrong, but I think I'm probably right. And I'm happy to argue it.
So the way that I find the happy balance is when someone emails us, and it's definitely a management issue, I'll respond to them immediately and say, I'm sending this
CC superintendent.
To the superintendent to respond.
Yeah.
So they get their instant response. It's not necessarily what they
But see, then people like me come to you and go, hey, I emailed you last week. I need because here, and the thing you guys are working with, that people who make a ton more money than anybody in here that live in places where they're the board of directors for massive worldwide corporations, what they don't have that you have that makes your job tougher is the people who are contacting you have kids who have short time spans even when you talk about K-12, that's a short time frame. But normally what you're talking about is I've got a problem and I need a resolution in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's the easy answer. So I'm here to be candid, right? I think I am. But the easy answer is, hey, thanks for telling me that. I'm sending this superintendent for a decision. Well, this person might be in completely good faith or not, but they're like, you know what? I'm not waiting 2 weeks. The test's in 10 days.
Yeah.
Or the season started. I mean, I want my kid eligible for, or I don't like the coach and the coach is still there and I told you on Monday and it's Tuesday and I told my friends and they told you too.
Or I want the bus picking my kid up tomorrow.
Right. There's that, you have a, it's like at a grocery store. It's produce. It's not canned milk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the processes that are in place or the policy or practices are sound. I mean,
That's correct.
Right.
It does not.
So it offers the opportunity too, through this thing, for the superintendent, administrator to use some judgment to say, well, this doesn't make sense. Then we do go and change protocols and things when they don't make sense, or can make a decision to say, this doesn't make sense for this, let's fix it. But then what we do, and I know that it's public because we email all board members, but when questions come in from different, we put them back through like a board connect that said, don't use names, just, a concern was raised about this is the follow-up, just so that the board knows something was done that they didn't follow the black hole.
Correct. But let me just say real quick, like this model is intended for board member audience. Your model is different. Things come in here and you can say, this is what administration is applying processes to facts. You can take something and say, we're moving this one up here, or this one's going to stay a little longer because I don't have enough information, like, what curriculum we should use. So you get to play in here, but I mean, I think we could all agree that a board member coming into this arena would be clearly micromanaging. But I think,
The advantage of communicating back to the board on what decision or how it was handled is when the next citizen comes to me and said, blah, 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 I'm going to go, this was what the administration says.
Correct.
And then they get their information instantly. They still may not like it, but it is the information.
Correct. So anyway, that's I wanted to talk about because it's in your thing, and I know it's whether you think so or not, it's generally floats around out there as an issue. So any questions on micromanaging in general?
Well, I guess not really a question, but it seems like inherently in all processes there's an element of triage, which is somewhat what you were just explaining. That
Inside.
Yeah. Ultimately, there's stuff coming from everywhere, whether it's coming from the bottom or it's coming directly to you. And that, I feel like that's something that people don't often think about, is that their problem is always the most important. But ultimately, that's always what we're doing, whether it's a school district or other policies or the government, is what's most important today or tomorrow. And if it's not super important right now, it's easier to push it back up through than, oh, this is something I need to talk about today with someone right now.
Right, but I think I agree with you, and I think that there's oftentimes a completely different view of what's important from the person contacting you versus what's important from the organization. I mean, you have somewhere around 50,000 students. You can't have 50,000 issues dealt with today, but and that makes it tough. But I agree with you. I think there is a lot of triage. But what this is, again, is just to. I think that when things are coming at you from this way and you're dealing with them and you find yourself grappling with them, it's more likely, there's always exceptions, it's more likely you're stepping outside of a traditional policy setting role than if things have worked up through here. And if you have questions, to be really candid, if you have questions as to what's going on in here, like why is that taking so long, this should go faster, this should go slower. I mean, this is your superintendent right here, and that's the person, according to your conduct, that's not me saying, that's the person who's responsive and has to respond to that and say, the reason, Billy's issue is serious, we got 50,000 kids, this is why Billy's issue should percolate up versus Susie's issue or whatever the case may be.
Real good example, this might be the calendar committee that we have that's composed of people from every division. UAA has a representative, bargaining units have representatives, the PTAs have representatives. And if people want to have the calendar be a certain way, it should come through that process and be seen by all those people. It shouldn't be a board member going, I think Veterans Day ought to be this way. or these meetings will last until 2 o'clock in the morning every single
Right.
time. There's a process for it. The board members shouldn't do anything more than defer to that when someone shows up from outside the firm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can tell you right now at 6:05, we are not going past 7 for both your sake and my sake. I'm going to have to cut some stuff, so I'm going to cut some stuff.
Parliamentarian stuff.
Parliamentarian.
Choice of what we're,
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, do you guys? Yeah, you have a choice as long as it's in my outline.
That's just,
Bond law. No, that's not one of you. Well, here, let me do this. Here's what we're going to do real quick. I'm going to go through this. This one we're going to skip. Nobody speaks to the captain no more. You don't get all the information you want. You have requests for information. You're not as a board member, not as individually powerful as, you can't make the district jump. And that's also an ethic, just so you know, municipal ethic. Use of municipal resources includes employee and employee time. So sometimes there's board members who in good faith want more information. They ask for information, and it's not something that you're entitled to under your own code of conduct. You can ask for a request for information, and then the board itself decides. So you don't have, what can happen is individual board members start monopolizing resources, which are time, effort, and searching.
and we have done in the past where we, as a board, decided on the priority. That's a high priority, that's a medium, that's a low priority. And
Yeah.
whether the board member liked it or not, it was a board decision on how fast that information. Sometimes they had to wait 3 months.
Oh yeah, no, I've watched situations where people go, I can't get to my job because I'm trying to respond to a board member request. So anyway, and that's what you have in your code of conduct. It's already there. So here's the Open Meetings Act. Welcome to paradise. I would guess you guys, are you generally familiar with the Open Meetings Act? You want to do more ethics? You want to do Open Meetings Act? You want me to skim through this? We're not going to finish. I'll just let you know.
I think it's important enough that we need to go through this part.
Okay.
I think open meetings is more important than the ethics piece.
Let's make sure that tape's running. I think open meetings are more important than ethics in general. I'm kidding.
Because the
I was
ethics
just kidding you.
was put in, and it's fairly, it's a lot more succinct than it used to be, and it's something we can all read that for ourselves.
Well, the Open Meetings Act is just one page.
Well, but it's more complicated.
Okay. Your school board has chosen you and a board member colleague to be on the negotiations committee. All of these are hypotheticals, obviously. Let me just get to where I need to be. Your school board has chosen you and a board member colleague to be on the negotiations committee. The two of you will meet with the superintendent and HR folks next Friday to formulate a negotiation strategy. You are subject to the Open Meetings Act posting requirement. Who says yes? Who says no? Who says yes? Who says no? What are you saying?
False.
False.
You are subject. You think false?
Yeah, false. There's just 2 people. There's just 2 board members, right?
Superintendent.
HR folks.
Oh, you know what? Actually, this one I forgot to mark. I think it's true
Why?
because.
Open meeting acts when there's 3 or more.
Aha! Thank you. You're my straight person.
But the superintendent's on the board.
No. Wait. Stop. So all meetings of government body are open to let's see.
It's
All
negotiations.
meetings of a governmental body, of a public entity of the state are open to the public, okay? All meetings of a governmental body, and TAM is referring to a meeting, means a gathering of members of a governmental body when more than 3 members, or a majority of the members meet. You're a 7-person board, so it's more than 3, okay? So any 2 board members can meet, right? Well, let me step back for a minute. A negotiations committee on a Friday night, first, is a bad decision because it's Friday night. Secondly, is a negotiations committee a standing committee
No.
of sorts?
Well,
Is it prearranged? It's a prearranged meeting, right? You'd say that. Would you agree with me on that?
Number 1, it's negotiations, and number 2,
Well, that
board
doesn't-
members never sit on negotiations.
Well, it's a no. They are sometimes involved in various districts in the initial development. Where's my Open Meetings Act? So let me get to hopefully the decision.
The difference is, John, is
Let's
It
look at
still
this.
has to be noticed, it just means it might be executive session.
Nope. Let me,
Well, for some, what we do, anyway.
here's where we're gonna find the difference. Governmental body means an assembly, council, board, that's you guys, right? Commission, committee, the question was negotiations committee, right? Or other similar body of public entity, okay? That's what governmental body says. So I gotta just tell you, I'm like, how come Tam's not watching? But she's watching up there. The governmental body means a board, but it can also be a committee. But you're right that for a meeting, there has to be more than 3 members. But look what the legislature did. Governmental body includes, there's a circular aspect of this, but a governmental body includes the members of a subcommittee or other subordinate unit of government body if the subordinate unit consists of 2 or more members. Oh.
It's news to me.
Oh. Wait, let me see. I might need.
But this committee doesn't establish policy
Right.
or act on behalf.
So, but watch this, and here's where, I forgot all my stuff, right? Do you have an Open Meetings Act that I can use? Can I borrow some of these Open Meetings Act? There it is, thanks. So, I came here, I forgot all my paperwork, and my buddy and partner, Bill Evans, brought it over, but don't think I won't mention to him he forgot my Open Meetings Act. Here we go, definition of governmental body. Here we go. Government, here, I'm going to look at your Open Meetings Act, and I apologize, I don't have a slide. Meeting means a gathering of members of a government body when more than 3 members meet, right? Or the gathering is prearranged, it's next Friday night, it's a committee meeting, for the purpose of considering a matter upon which the government body is empowered to act, and the government body has only authority to advise or make recommendations for a public entity, but it has no authority to establish powers or make decisions for the public entity. So that means a standing committee that's prearranged where you can advise the entity, which is the school district, it's 2 or more. And I will tell you, a long time ago, back when I started practicing law, it was 2 or more, and a judge in Valdez, whose name I cannot recall, held that 2 board members standing outside talking about school district business was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So then they changed the statute, but they left in this remnant that means where you have a prearranged advisory committee meeting and there's 2 board members on it, it has to be posted.
Well, we post all of that.
Right, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
these are, the Open Meetings Act, like a lot of things in life, is a floor. You can always do more. You can post every meeting you want,
And
but
does it also have to be open to the public?
that depends, we'll get to that in a minute. So it depends, not negotiations, but a posting means that it's going to be,
No.
well, let me get to that in a different question so as to not confuse. So do you understand? So meeting, if you're taking action and 3 of you go outside, more than 3, so 4 of you go outside, assuming we took a break, which we haven't, we can at any time. Okay. No, board president said no. So just want you to know I didn't say that. But if 4 of you go outside and you talk about school district business, that, first of all, I will say, to be completely candid, there's thousands of violations of the Open Meetings Act. And the law actually anticipates that, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But if 4 of you go outside and make a decision, I really wish that wasn't recorded. That was just a Friday afternoon comment for any of those, for all my Russian colleagues and comrades over. Anyway, 3 or if you have more than 3, 4, you're obviously making a decision, 4 board members. But if you have a committee and you're on the committee and there's 2 of you on the committee, then you got to post that. Okay. There's a regularly scheduled board meeting next week. One of the items on the agenda is a proposed expenditure of $500,000 to repair the playground equipment at the elementary school. You're at home trying to figure out how the price of swing sets got to be so high. A neighbor with elementary-aged kids stops by and begins to discuss the need for the playground repairs with you. Shortly thereafter, a parent of high school-aged students stops and argues against playground expenditures in these difficult fiscal times. Before you know it, 5 or 6 of your neighbors have joined in the friendly afternoon debate. Then a fellow board member arrives unexpectedly, that's an important word, and joins in the discussion. During the debate, you decide to vote for the expenditure. Have you violated the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
No.
No.
Absolutely no. That was the case I just told you.
It's not a prearranged.
It's not prearranged, and it's 2 members. It's not a committee. That's the Your Neighborhood chat group is not a committee of the school district. One thing, did you see that in the paper the other day? That's the Juno, that's not your
Juno playground.
That's really a troubling photo for some reason. Anyway, the answer to that is no. Have you violated the Open Meetings Act? You absolutely can talk to each other informally whenever you want if there's just 2 of you. And if people show up, that's great. There could be a room of 10,000 people, 2 board members, and you're fine. And, well, more complicated. That's the same thing we already talked about. Now, this is getting to Andy's idea earlier. The OMA OMA stands for Open Meetings Act, provides for which of the following types of meetings: regular meetings, executive session meetings, special meetings, work session meetings, all of the above, none of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
It's all of the above is correct. And let me just get your policies, which I pulled out. It's turned into way more than. Here's your policies, but I will say this. There's only, the answer is all of the above. I think I'm going to go back here for a second. It's all of the above, but the Open Meetings Act, and I think this is important. I seem to bump into it more than I think I ought to. The Open Meetings Act only provides for one thing. The Open Meetings Act only provides for open meetings. It doesn't define anything, any type of meeting. There is only one thing. It is either an open meeting, and if it's not, doesn't fit as an open meeting, and then it's not subject to the Open Meetings Act. Okay, so that would be like your playground chat outside on your steps. Okay, so but it doesn't define. It doesn't say here's a regular meeting, here's an executive session meeting, special meeting, work session meeting. It doesn't say any of these. And here's what I think is important. You guys create the rules for this one, for A, C, and D. You guys create the rules, okay? And you want to know, here's a supplemental question, because you've been such a great audience. Regular meeting, special meeting, work session meeting. I've been practicing representing school districts for 25 years plus. Which of these 3 do you think I find the most trouble with?
Special meetings.
Any other suggestions? That answer is wrong. So now we're down to 2.
Exactly.
Right, that was
one of the choices.
Am I the only one awake here?
It's Friday afternoon.
Work session.
I know. So here's the thing. Let me go. Regular meeting, special meeting, work session meeting.
Work session.
And it's not special meeting.
Work session.
Work session. You know why? Here's what your work session says. And so here's what I tend to find. Why do you have work sessions? So Open Meetings Act only provides for open meetings. Do you guys know why you have work sessions?
It's more informal,
Well,
conversational as opposed to a business.
but what does that mean? The Open Meetings Act only provides for open meetings or not. So is a work session an open meeting?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Can anybody show up?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the purpose of a work session?
For the board to be able to talk, work things out.
Why can't you do that at a regular meeting? There's only an open meeting. No, but I'm going to I think an at least interesting, maybe not valid, but interesting point. Okay, here's what your work session, this is your policy 165.4. Work sessions shall be for an informal discussion by the board. I'm not, so I've seen boards mean they don't sit up here, they sit there. But remember, you could have 4 people stand outside and have a regular meeting. You could post and say, we're meeting in front of the school district outside, it's sunny. And frankly, in the summer, why wouldn't you? Right?
No business is going to be conducted.
Right. That's exactly right. So why do I, as a lawyer, have more troubles with work session? Number 1, it's a self-imposed restriction, right? It's a self-imposed. The statute just says open meeting. So you could call all your meetings regular meetings or special meetings, or you could call all your meetings regular meetings, or you could call all your meetings, it's 5 o'clock somewhere meetings. You could do that. There's no restriction. Okay? You call them a work session, and you purposefully say, we're going to make sure we're tying our foot behind our back. Okay? So first of all, you're doing that to yourself. The statute doesn't do that, right? Okay? What's the problem with that? So I'll just tell you, because we're running behind. I'll just tell you. I have watched a lot of work sessions where you're just talking, but you're actually, if I was a litigious person, you're oftentimes communicating decisions to your administration. Just tell you, I know you guys have never done it, but I've seen it. It was a long way away, and I haven't seen it in the last 25 years, so the statute of limitations is passed. But you guys are saying, and do you know how work sessions started? That's how old I am. Work sessions started as a way to have, somebody used the word informal. It's a way to say, you don't need, we'll get to this in another slide. You don't need to show up to this meeting. No decisions are going to be made here. You're actually saying, that's why you have a work session, is no big decisions being made here. We're just chatting. All the big decisions are going to be next Tuesday or Thursday or whenever you meet. So you're encouraging people, and I'm not opposed to this, I'm just letting you know. You're encouraging people not to show up because they're not going to be able to watch you make any actual decisions.
But we televise our work session.
Well, there you go. And I bet your viewership is super high. No, I'm just kidding. It's, I've got to be me. I'm much more reserved when I'm in front of a court or an arbitrator.
And I would say, I think the thing that makes the work sessions as practiced by ASD quite a bit more ethical is they don't have work sessions about things that never come up for a vote. It's a discussion period. They get reports from people, but this gets acted out in policy in the business meeting. It's not a case of where we all sit around, we come to an understanding, and then we assume the superintendent knows the right thing to do, and we never bring it up again.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that anybody ever does any of that. I'm just saying that when you create these self-imposed restrictions, beware of what you've created.
Because the work sessions are to inform later votes. They definitely are.
Right. And so that's kind of interesting what it means. What's the difference between those things?
We used to call it early meeting.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can call it whatever you want. The other thing just on this question real quick is executive session meeting. There is no such thing as an executive session meeting. That was a prior question, and then I just decided to drop it.
So what do we call it?
Well, an executive session occurs in a public meeting. There's only a public meeting, so you can never have an executive session meeting. You're always starting with a public meeting. So it's either, for you guys, it's either a regular meeting, a special meeting, or a work session. And within that envelope, you can have an executive session meeting unless you define out. Like there's a couple of districts that I don't know what you guys do, but there's nothing that would prohibit you outside of whatever you've done in your practice and your definitions of having an executive session within a work session or within a special meeting.
At the end of our work session, we move into executive session.
Right, but some places they go, we don't go into executive session in work sessions, which is, just tying something else behind your back. So. And then what happens is then they go, oh, we got to get this on the agenda. We got a meeting tomorrow. Can we use it?
I have an important point then.
Okay.
So we should not gavel out of the work session to go into executive session. We should just say, we are now moving into executive session.
The likelihood of litigation over that, I would hope, is super low. But analytically, there is a public meeting. This act, the act that I stole from you, creates a public meeting. You have to convene in a public meeting in order to go into executive session. So technically, to gavel out of your public meeting and then gavel into an executive session would be technically wrong, though I doubt anybody would ever bring a lawsuit about that. But, okay, here we go. This is all about you guys. Your school district does not have as much money as it would like. In fact, it's been common knowledge for quite some time that the district is going to have to make substantial cuts in its budget for 18. Because of the size of the cuts, blah, 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 you're going to close one of the elementary schools. Because of the importance of the issue, the board president decides to call a special meeting devoted solely to whether or not the board should close the school. Board policy requires 24 hours notice of a special meeting. The administration timely posts notice of the special meeting 4 days prior to the meeting. The meeting occurs and the board eventually agrees with the administration and votes to close the school. Has there been a violation of the Open Meetings Act? Who says no? Who's still with me? Huh?
We're like having a trick question now.
Well, who cares? We're not on TV. Who says no? Who says yes? Why do you say yes?
I'm guessing the Open Meetings Act specifies what the notice is.
No, it doesn't. See, you got the right answer, but for the wrong reason, and that's twice tonight. You've gotten the right answer, but the wrong reason. So I recommend next time you vote, you say, I'm not going to tell you why. So the answer is, has there been a violation of the Open Meetings Act? This is an Anchorage School District case. It's Tunley from 1980. So here's what happened in Tunley. In 1979, the school board, the administration in the district decided that they were going to close a couple of schools. So they made a list. There's like, say, 8 or 10 schools on the list. Then they had a meeting on. Gotta just catch up here 1 second. Oh, here's Tunley. Then they had a meeting on March 7th and took that list of, say, 8 or 10 schools and reduced it down to 2. So of that list that had been published for over a month or 6 weeks or whatever's in the case, they take that list of 10, they reduce it to 2. The 2 schools was Woodland Park Elementary School, and the other one was, which I don't think you guys have anymore, and the other one was Government Hill.
Still there.
Yeah, no, I know Government Hill's there. So those were the 2 on the list. So they put that list out on March 7th and scheduled a meeting for March 12th, 5 days later, a special meeting. Okay? And the policy was, your policy is 32 hours. So how can it be that you can schedule, and let's say, I don't know the policy back then, but let's say it was the same exact policy, because it doesn't matter for this example. So it was 32 hours notice for a special meeting. How can it be, it's actually, you got 24 hours, I'm sorry. You have 24 hours. It's 24 hours notice for a special meeting. You give 4 days notice for a special meeting. How can it be that that's in violation of the Open Meetings Act?
So did they have all 10 of the
Yeah.
schools? And then it was changed later and what was?
Reduced to 2. So everything was publicized.
So that's the piece, is once you publicize the agenda and all the items.
No. Wait. No. So here, let me. Okay, here's me walking through time. 10 schools, including Woodland Park and Government Hill, are put on a list.
So
Okay?
how did the other 8 get taken off though?
Okay, wait. That's not. 10 schools are on the list. Okay, including Woodland Park and Government Hill. Board has a meeting, publicized, everything's cool, and they reduce that from 10 to 2. The 2 remaining. In the public. It's on TV. It's on TV.
Okay,
There's 1,000 parents there. You're closing schools. There's 1,000 parents there. Okay? I wasn't here back then. But they close it. They do it all legitimately. They go from 10, which included Woodland Park and Government Hill, to 2. Woodland Park and Government Hill are the only 2 left. Everything's public. It was the case reports. It was on TV. It was well publicized. And timing's coming. It's March. You got to get things going. So you call the board president and the board, schedule a meeting for March 12th. 5 days later, your policy requires 24 hours notice, right? Everyone understands you're more than in compliance. Okay? So then you go to March 12th. You make a decision on what to close. Doesn't really matter. I think they closed both.
They closed Woodland Park.
Okay, thanks. Actually, is that actually in the case?
It's true, we sold them to Boys and Girls Club.
Right. But actually, I think, just so you know, the case was overturned. It doesn't really matter. You might have closed both. But, so you close Woodland Park. And then you get sued. You got sued and you lost.
Why? Oh, really?
Okay, how can that be? Well, you know why? I don't even know if I got a, whoops. Here, somebody read to me, I do apologize. I'm going to borrow your thing real quick. It says, here it is on the second page of your Open Meetings Act, at the top, under E, it says reasonable public notice shall be given for all meetings. Okay? Reasonable public notice. And you define that as 24 hours for a special meeting, right? The Alaska Supreme Court said reasonable notice depends on what you're doing. So, meaning reasonable is not defined as 24 hours. You defined it as 24 hours. And what the court said was, you know what? You're closing a daggone school, even though they were on a list for a month. 5 days, the court said, was not reasonable to allow people who have interests to organize themselves to come to that school board. So the court said you complied with your regulation, but your regulation doesn't trump statute. And what statute says is it has to be reasonable. So the more serious the question, the more reasonable. And what reasonable is in the court in law means you take all the circumstances into consideration. So when you are closing a school, it's going to be a lot more time than, for instance, you're trying to, let's go the other way. You've got you need to make a fast decision on a school repair that you have a school roof collapse or something like that. You got to do something really quick. You could call that on 24 hours, it'd be fine. Reasonable notice, take it to an extreme. We have a significant earthquake or something like that. Reasonable notice could be 5 hours. It could be, it's based on the circumstances, and that's what the court was saying in Tunley. Any questions on that? Okay, we're going to just skip this one. That's a trick question. You guys know in an executive session you can take action in executive session with regard to negotiations and litigation. Well, that's what the trick was in this question. You can direct, you tell me how a group of 7 people directs a superintendent or a lawyer in a thing that is otherwise in a subject to executive session. So I've been in hundreds and hundreds of those meetings, and I will just tell you, it's a little smile inside, and it'll be like, so do we all agree? Just shake your head if you agree. You can take action. So you could actually, you can take action. You can take action, and to take action, you can do it however you want.
So you can vote in executive session?
If it's with regard to
Negotiations
or directing a attorney in the handling of a specific legal matter or pending labor negotiations, you can. How do you communicate? How do you communicate what you want that lawyer to do? So people go, you can't vote. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can give direction. But in the end, when you peel back everything that's going on, you're really assessing what everybody's position is on a particular course of action.
Is anybody really upset over this?
Right.
No,
so that's kind of I don't know.
What we call a straw poll.
6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Yeah, right. What's a straw poll other than a vote? I love this slide because it's volcano. The time has come. The board will consider a layoff of staff. This is different than a non-renewal. Non-renewals are relatively easy. Layoffs are very, very difficult if you've ever gone through one. The board will consider a layoff of staff. This will be a difficult and touchy discussion. It would be much easier and better if it were an executive session. Under new business, personnel, and staffing, you move to go into executive session. The board adopts the motion. Has the board violated the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Why?
Conducted business.
No. You're supposed to say, I'm kidding.
Probably not going to happen.
I'm kidding. No. So the answer is the board has violated the Open Meetings Act. Anybody know why?
We can't lay off staff.
Oh, yeah, you can. Wait for a couple of years, depending on what happens here.
Wait a couple of months.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. So you have to approve a layoff policy.
Oh, okay.
A layoff plan. So the board has violated. Here's the government meetings. So this is, so remember, most of you remember, the motion was you moved to go into executive session. Here's your violations. And the topic, let's remember, is layoff of staff. Because that's a touchy, everybody agrees, that's a touchy discussion, right? But here's what the Open Meetings Act says. First of all, I don't know how you could even go into executive session for that. Because the one way you can go into executive session is matters the immediate knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the public entity. Having a discussion as to whether or not you're going to reduce staff is not it's called a C1. It's not a C1 exception. The immediate knowledge of knowing that you guys are facing a potential staff reduction and layoff, that doesn't change your financial rating or anything like that. So you're not going to get in on that. You could try to get in on subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person. Note that doesn't say employee, it can be any person. But that's not going to be it, because a layoff, by definition, is not conduct-based. So you're not going to get in on that. And to go into executive session, the motion to convene an executive session must clearly and with specificity describe the subject of the proposed executive session without defeating the purpose of addressing the subject in private. But the point there is, so you want to know another little rule of thumb of mine? The shorter the motion to go into executive session, oftentimes more likely it is that it's close to the edge, if not over the edge. So that's why the example said, I move to go into executive session. Everyone's like, yeah. Not you guys, but if you were this hypothetical board. But a lot of times that's because nobody knows how to finish the motion. I move to go into executive session to talk about a matter that the immediate knowledge of which would not impact our finances, and this doesn't impact anybody's reputation and character, but I'd really like to go in because it's a touchy subject. So that motion probably would have failed. So, okay. So this is a similar one. An employee who will for sure be part of any layoff request to meet with the board in an executive session to explain her side of the story. Does the employee have the right to tell her side of the story to the board in the executive session? And why not?
We're not in an arbitration matter at that point.
Right. And this one, it's an awkward question. I actually put it in this afternoon, but because we're talking about a layoff, but so I put in, it's clearly going to be subject to the layoff. But what you oftentimes have is, what does an employee say? Now let's change it a little bit. You want to talk about an employee that you're having significant issues. It's worked through the process. It's not an arbitration, but the board's the superintendent wants some guidance from the board on this matter. It's going to be about an employee and that employee's performance. And you're going into executive session and you make your motion according to C2, which is the exception. You make it properly, and the employee goes, hey, I want to go in there. I want you to hear my side of the story. Does that employee have a right to go into your executive session?
Yes.
Absolutely not. I just gave you a clue. I said it's your executive session. Nobody listens to me. Nobody listens to the captain anymore.
If they want to do that, they have to do it out here in the...
Yes, look. This is across the state. This is an example of the culture of the Open Meetings Act has supplanted the actual words of the Open Meetings Act. So subject that tends to prejudice the reputation and character of any person, provided the person may request a public discussion. If you look in your board policy 160, for executive session 165.6, it says, and I quote, the public shall be excluded from the executive session. So the executive session is your executive session. It is the board's executive session. You can invite people in. So what normally happens is that it's basically a game of chicken. Okay? So is that the employee says, so what ought to happen is the administration goes, hey, under personnel, this number here, the board may decide to go into executive session to discuss your situation. I need to let you know that, because that's what the administration does in preparation for your meeting. And the employee will say, well, I want to be in there. And so sometimes that gets worked out that way. But the legal right answer is to say, well, you don't have a right to go into executive session. But if you'd like us to talk about this in public, we're welcome to. And that is what the law says. The law says. And so then the employees oftentimes will be like, I don't want this in executive. I don't want this in public. And the answer to that is, okay, well, have a seat. There's some coffee. We'll be done when we're done. What oftentimes happens is there's a compromise for various reasons where the board will say, okay, we won't do it in. So an employee's better play, if you're down in Vegas, your better play is to say, okay, I think I might want it in public. because then the board generally doesn't want to have the discussion in public, right? So then the compromise is, well, how about we invite you in? Oh, okay, and that's how that occurs. But it's not of right. It's by grace, and it's by grace of the board. Did you have a
What
question?
about evaluations? Like superintendent evaluation or?
Superintendent, so I don't know your superintendent's, I have your superintendent's contract, but I haven't really read it. But usually that's addressed in contract with the superintendent. It's the ones I do. Usually, the provisions I have, the superintendent waives any right to public discussion of the evaluation. But then you're getting into a whole thing of whether a superintendent's evaluation is public, right? And that's under the Public Records Act. It's the evaluation, and what most districts do is a summary for public dispersal. Though if I was a hungry lawyer, I could probably get the actual evaluation. Just because there's a case on that everybody's forgotten, involving the Anchorage Municipal Librarian, who is held to be a high public official. And if the Anchorage Municipal Librarian is a high public official, I suspect that a superintendent, in fact, now where's Stark? I suspect just about anybody who teaches my kids is a high public official, but and their principals. But okay, anyway, moving on. While you're in executive session discussing the layoff, one of the board members begins, which was illegal by the way, we already decided, or not illegal, in violation of the Open Meetings Act, which is not illegal. And we'll talk about that in a second. One of the board members begins to discuss the terrible playground fire. Remember several slides ago? Others agree, and you all begin discussing whether or not the district should spend $500,000 to improve. When the public meeting reconvenes after the executive session, the next item under new business is playground fire replacement. The motion passes quickly with little debate. Parents of the high school students are outraged. They claim the decision was in violation of the Open Meetings Act. Do you think they're right?
Yes.
Yes.
Clearly. You guys were in executive session to discuss layoff, and you more than 3 of you sat around and decided to vote for playground equipment. So it's clear, and they threatened to sue. Is there anything you can do?
Yes.
Panic.
You could rectify the mistake in public by having the discussion in public.
Right here. A government body that violates or is alleged to have violated, you don't even have to admit it, is alleged to have violated this section may cure the violation or alleged violation by holding another meeting in compliance with notice and other requirements of this section and conducting a substantial and public reconsideration of the matters considered at the original meeting. So, but the other thing you need to know about the Open Meetings Act is one of the critical things that actually came out of that Valdez case I was telling you about, that I was involved in a long, long time ago. Action taken contrary to this section is voidable. That is the biggest change. So how many, who here has been on the board the longest? How many lawsuits has the district faced, in your recollection, alleging violations of the Open Meetings Act? 0. How long have you been on the board?
8 years.
Okay. You're not supposed to look to somebody else on how long you've been on the board. That's like, John, how old are you? Which, if my wife was here, I'd go, honey, what's the answer? No. There has been a precipitous decline in Open Meeting Act violations, which is always funny to me that AASB always wants to talk about the Open Meetings Act, because why has there been that precipitous decline since the mid-90s when they changed the statute? Well, here's why. So prior to then, back in the 80s and 90s, there were lots of claims about the Open Meetings Act. And the reason was because if you won the claim or even brought the claim, it used to say action taken contrary to this section is void. Think about that. That means, how long does it take for a lawsuit to work through this process? A couple of years. It can be a year. Sometimes they're fast, but not often, right? That means you passed a motion on a Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. If the court rules in the plaintiff's favor, the action you took is void. Think about that. What if you passed a motion to hire a bunch of people? What if you passed a motion to ratify a contract? What if you passed a motion to hire a contractor? It's void. So the legislature realized holy cow, we can't have that. So now it's voidable. So now let's watch what happens because it's voidable and not automatically void. So number one, it's voidable. Number two, there's a shortened statute of limitations. Everyone knows statute of limitations, time within you got to bring a claim or you lose it because society wants to move on and not always dwell on the past. So if you don't bring a case within 180 days, it's gone. So you can actually violate the Open Meetings Act, and if nobody does anything, 180 days, it's gone even if it was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. But then it goes even farther. So look what the court now if you bring a Open Meetings Act violation, here's what the court does. It balances these factors. And as we go through these factors, think about this. Does that factor, the way it's written, does that favor the public entity, the school board, or does it favor the plaintiff? The expense that may be incurred by the public entity, other governmental bodies, and individuals if the action is voided. That favors the public entity, right? The disruption that may be caused to the affairs of the public entity, other governmental bodies, and individuals if the action is voided, like contracts and stuff like that. The degree to which the public entity or governmental bodies and individuals may be exposed to additional litigation if the action is voided, like, hey, you gave me this contract, I'm working on it, I want to be paid. The extent to which the governing body and meetings held in compliance with this section has previously considered the subject, the amount of time that has passed, the degree to which the public entity has come to rely on the action, like just about everything you passed, right? Whether and to what extent the governing body is before or after the lawsuit engaged or attempted to engage in public reconsideration, that's the one that Tam brought up earlier. The degree to which violations of the subject were willful, flagrant, or obvious, that cuts in favor of the plaintiff. The degree to which the governing body failed to adhere to the policy under 4462.312, which is that meetings are public. So the point is that the vast bulk of those factors favor a hand slap without an actual change in your vote. And the result of that over the last 1,000 years or since the mid-90s is that you don't get many, if any, when I started, I had a whole bunch of Open Meetings Act cases. Okay, this I got to go over real quick, then I want to jump to a quick ethics thing. And then I think we'll be done, and I won't have covered everything, but I'll cover most of it. You are preparing for the next board meeting, you see a proposed budget revision that will cut important equipment replacement at your neighborhood school. You call and text other board members one at a time and emphasize the importance of keeping this equipment replacement money in the budget. You did all of that in the quiet of your office. Have you violated the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Okay, you guys know all that, right? Okay, and why?
Because you contacted
But you didn't have a meeting. There was never 4 of you together. It's a serial meeting. There's no, you know what? There's no Alaska case on that. But there is a case that says, you know what a meeting is? A meeting isn't simply sitting here together. A meeting is going into the deliberative process. And so while there's no case on that, the meeting is the deliberative process, and it's not a stone's throw away to get across. It's like a little toss. So that's why everybody knows, and I'm glad you guys know, that that would be a big no-no.
What if you're discussing it without a particular point of view? You're not calling people potentially trying to line up votes, but you're, in the course of a couple of weeks, you talk to one board member and then another.
It goes one to whether a case is brought within 180 days. I mean, but the other thing is nobody asks when you're in one of those lawsuits, which don't happen very often. Nobody asks. The court will ask, did you intend to do it? But the action itself, the deliberative process, if it occurred, it occurred. And if you're doing that in a serial way, you can be innocent. One of the factors, if I went back, was how intentional was this? And you'd say it wasn't intentional. Well, that's one of the factors. The other thing I just want to say, because this happens more today than just this, it's easy to say you're not going to call one person, then the next person, the next person. That's not how we communicate anymore. That's why I put call and text. So real quick, I'm not going to go into it. There's a Supreme Court case in 2012 or 13. Sarah Palin was the governor. She was using her emails, her personal emails, right? And when you're emailing about a government business thing, which would be anything the school district does, your emails are subject to disclosure and may be required to be maintained under the Public Records Act, which is independent of the Open Meetings Act. But so the courts never address texts or other social media. That's also a small toss of a pebble to get there. So when you're texting, it'd be the same thing as phone calling.
It's the same thing. If I were to put it on Facebook, this is how I feel about
Correct.
this issue, and it's something that board members are going to be voting on, I might as well have, personally called each board member.
Right.
On Facebook, it's pretty dang public.
It's very public, and but that wouldn't be, there'd have to be deliberative process going on.
You're Facebook friends with other board members.
Yeah, or you're messaging. I'm not on Facebook, but I've done lots of cases, mostly involving students, not board members. But Facebook would be I have experts who tell me how it works.
But at the same token on that, Tam, if you say something and no one else responds back, I don't think it becomes a serial meeting either, right? I mean,
Oh, no, you can broadcast something, and if there's not a deliberative process. But the way to get through that, so I don't want to dwell on this. The way to get through that is, so you volley your thoughts, nobody responds. Somebody else volleys their thoughts, nobody responds. But you guys, I can cut through that. Let's conflicts of interest. That's Warren Buffett and Jimmy Buffett. Are they related? Nobody knows. They say they are. They do, the person, my staff person, I said, look, they look the same, and she goes, they're two old white guys. I was like, well, but look at the glasses. But anyway, we're the people our parents warned us about. Conflict of interest, really, actually, you guys have your conflict of interest. I want to talk about this for a second. And I got 9 minutes. This is what the state requires, okay? And this is very short. Yours goes on forever. But this is actually deeper than yours in a little bit. So, I think this is important for you guys as a group. Because what a conflict is, and you'll see in your conflict things, which we won't get to tonight, and I apologize for that, but I really wish we had scheduled this for 3 hours to 8 or 9 tonight. But a member of the governing body shall declare a substantial financial interest the member has. That's all the state requires you to do. But your municipal ones are more detailed. Declare a substantial financial interest. The point I want to make here is if you are ever in doubt, and this is in your ethics code too, when in doubt, declare. You are encouraged to declare. And what the state law says, if you declare, that takes away the conflict. It can take away the conflict. So you as a board member under state law, you could declare a conflict. Like, I will get money out of this contract. And the board president and then the board can say, we still want you to vote. And you can vote under state law. Your law is more restricted. Or your rules are more restricted. But the point is, societally, is that what we say is societally, and this gets to my first question, one of my first questions is the one about can you vote for somebody you like or your preferred candidate, is that what state law says is if you declare your perspective, like I have some interest in this, I like that person, whatever the case may be, that takes away the fear that you're acting secretively, that you're some double secret Russian comrade agent. So declaring is super encouraged, and it's super encouraged in your ethics code, the municipal ethics too. And blah, blah, and all the rest of that's kind of the same. Here's your ethics. It was just passed. This new one was just 3/21/17. Here's your conflicts of interest. We're not going to be able to get through all of this, so you should read it. I recommend it. It's great reading. Here's the way you analyze, and you can go, holy cow, I don't want to do this. I ran for the board because I want to be involved in education. Go to the end, it says you can submit any of your questions to the ethics people over there at the MOA, and they'll give you a decision. And that's the right answer. The right answer is don't be the judge of your own ethics. If you even have a question, that means you should talk to somebody. But what I wanted to do, only because I only do these things, especially this one, just for fun, is gifts. Can you as a school board member accept gifts?
Depends.
Well, let me just tell you, as a school board member, do you have to be wary if you accept a gift?
Yes.
Okay, stand up if I gave you an envelope. And yeah. You guys, do you know the value of the card in there? Yeah. The value of the card, let's pretend it's $75.
Give it back.
That's right. So no, it's only $25, which is allowable. It's under $50. But anyway, that was my little. I was like, I'm going to give out some of these cards, and then I'm going to say, you took a gift, And I had a longer way of drawing that out, but I'm out of time. So it's 5 to 7. I'm going to stop. If you guys have questions, you could do another session on this. Obviously, I didn't cover it, but I hope this was helpful. I hope that you don't know any of the answers, but you learned about how to think about things. So if you have any questions, great. Otherwise, it's Friday night at 7. Thank you.
Thanks for your energy.
You're welcome.
I do have one question. From what the meeting code used to be, I've looked through it briefly, but I'm not a lawyer. What used to be and what it is now.
Well, who goes to lawyers for ethics?
Much less complicated.
It might be less complicated, but that generally means it's more vague. So there's two things so I can say something that's really not complicated. You have the right to free speech. We've spent 240 years trying to figure out what that means. It'd be a lot easier if it was really detailed. I will say there's on the one about writing or being on, so remember one of my questions, so I don't have time for all of this, but one of the ones that we talked about the being on the radio, that one. So be on the radio, write something, it's the same thing, you're right. There was a complaint that was filed in July of 2015, and here was the decision, and so this was I think of interest, that said you got to be careful with how you use your title when you're communicating in public, and they tried to address that in the new ethics in an interesting way. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to do, but it's not as clear as you would like. But this one is July. I'll leave this with somebody. If you're interested in how you handle yourself as a public official, you might want to read it.
Give it to Katie to send out.
Give it to us.
Katie, if you could by say 9:39 get a memo out to everybody what that means.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So, any other questions? Thank you for coming. I know it was a painful time. Painful time meaning time in the day, not necessarily time in
Is
me.
this paper, or is this something you want me to bring up at the next meeting?
Is that something you can do?
This is a good question.
Good job. 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 Good job.